Oh, thank you so much, Salena, for joining me today. I'm so excited. Your work is utterly, utterly refreshing and beautiful and just lyrical and magical. So, first of all, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you so much, Ashiti. Thank you.
Thank you. So, without further ado, Salena Godden, who is a Fellow of the Royal Society of Literature, is an award winning author, poet, and broadcaster based in London. In 2021, Canongate published a highly acclaimed debut novel, Mrs. Death, Mrs. Death. It won the Indie Book Award for Fiction and was the winner of the People's Book Prize 2022. It was also shortlisted for the British Book Awards, the Bad Form Magazine Book of the Year shortlist, and the Gordon Byrne Prize. Film and TV rights to this unique debut novel have already been taken by Idris Elba, can you believe it, and Green Door Pictures, which is so flipping cool. Um, Selena's work has been highly and widely anthologized and broadcast on BBC Radio and TV. Her essay Shade was published in the groundbreaking anthology The Good Immigrant. A short story, Blue Cornflowers, was shortlisted for the Fourth Estate and the Guardian Short Story Prize. She's had several volumes of poetry published, including Under the Pier, Fishing in the Aftermath, poems 1994 to 2014, and also a literary childhood memoir, Springfield Road. She has produced 4 studio albums to date. Can you believe it? On top of everything. Her solo poetry album, LIVEwire, Nymphs and Thugs, was shortlisted for the Ted Hughes Prize. A hardback edition of Pessimism is for Lightweights, 30 Pieces of Courage and Resistance, was actually published this year in February again by Rough Trade Books, and the poem version is on permanent display at the People's History Museum in Manchester, so go and see it. Godden is currently working on 3 new books for Canongate, one of which is the eagerly anticipated new fiction novel set in the Mrs. Death world. 3 new titles will be published by them in 2024 and 2025, and we're talking about, of course, Pessimism is for Lightweights today, which, again, see, so much to say.
That was such a wonderful introduction. Thank you very, very much. Thank
Oh,
you.
my pleasure, my pleasure. So, I'll let you go with it.
Oh, we're going to start with a poem with my matching book and matching jumper. We're very yellow in here. The poem. Let's start. Let's start nice and warm. This is Welcome to Hope. Here's your map, she says. This is where you always are. See here, the mountains of vivid life. Make a boat of books. Read them all. Sail down this mighty dream river, through forests of wonder. Look how the trees grow ever good, how the sky holds its own. Nature is so loud in her gardening. Your soul is your compass. Kindness isn't at the border. Caring is not the city, but change is in the wind, and wild is the weather. Home is a feeling, and now is where we are. She nudges me awake. Welcome to hope. She sings, welcome to hope. Get up, get up, get up. Hope is here, and love knows we have so much to do. Thank you.
Oh, so lovely. I actually just got like little chills as you were reading it. I could just imagine the tree and I can imagine it. Yeah, there's something so vivid about it, which is so weird because obviously I have to ask you, so what does pessimism for lightweights actually mean to you in regards to the term itself, especially you've just talked about hope?
Pessimism is for lightweights. There's many, many, many answers to this, as you can imagine. It's grown and it's grown and it's grown. The poem started life as a poem for the author John Higgs, and John Higgs is a fantastic writer. He's so wise. He's such an amazing social commentator and historian, and he just says, I just love the way his brain works. And I was at one of his talks, and in his talk he says pessimism is for lightweights. And I thought, wow, what a line. And then he was doing a book called Watling Street. And Watling Street is the oldest road, one of the oldest roads in Britain. It goes all. It's almost like the spine of England. It goes all the way
Hmm.
up from Dover all the way up, and it was a book about Watling Street. So the road that's being referred to in that poem, this road is made of protest, is Watling
Mm.
Street. I'm referring to the old road that was there before times. Um, and so John asked me to write a poem for his Watling Street podcast, and I said only if I can call it "Pessimism is for Lightweights," and that's where the
Mm.
poem began. But what does "Pessimism is for Lightweights," the phrase, mean to me? I think it's very easy nowadays to be quite sort of cynical and pessimistic and sarcastic, and that's seen as intelligence. Whereas to be joyful and optimistic and have enthusiasm and fire and passion, that seem as being a bit dumb or a bit
Mm.
silly or a bit, it's not as clever. To be loving and to be kind and to find hope and to look for the light and look for the better way to do things. And so I think it's actually really hardcore, to be me or to be someone like me, to have that, to have that hope and to have that idealism. I understand I am idealistic. I take that on the chin. It's okay to be idealistic. Things aren't ideal. And until they are, then I will continue to be idealistic. But I think
Mm.
particularly as a young girl, your hopes and dreams and your passion are seen as being silly or folly or foolish, and you are squashed and you are shushed. And I will not be squashed or shushed anymore. I will be
Mm.
optimistic, loudly optimistic, because I think that's a lot. It's a lot. If you've been somewhere in your life very dark, very scary,
Mm.
then you're going to do everything to be where the light is, the good and the fire and the heat and the passion, because you don't want anyone to be in that dark place, and you certainly don't want to share that. So there's a lot. It's a lot to do with that as well. Um, but yeah, I think. Yeah, I hope I've answered that enough. There's so many levels to it. But I think,
Mm.
yeah, look, I mean, in the book, there's the posters in the book, and it's like hope is an energy. And something
Mm.
I say a lot as well is hope is a group project. And like the idea of hope being infectious, or hope is like fleas, pass it on,
Mhm.
and just keep passing it on. And yeah, it's quite powerful. It really is.
No, you're right. I totally agree. It's so interesting. I think I've heard before where people have said, I think it was at the WOW Foundation, actually. I think one of the Women of the World festivals, where one of the directors turned around and shouted at the audience, so who is hopeful for the future? And no one put their hand up. And she said, that's the problem.
Yeah,
And
it
I was
is a
like, "Oh
problem.
God,
Yeah,
yeah, it's true,
yeah,
isn't it?"
yeah.
So is that the context of why you wrote this collection in the first place? Like, do you think that backdrop of almost like apathy spurred you on?
Oh, to be honest with you, I think I've been fighting and rallying against apathy all my life. I think it's the thing if you look at my work going back over the last 30 years, it's definitely, I mean, from early poems like Can't Be Bothered, where I wrote about, sort of taking the mickey out of people that were like, can't be bothered, don't matter, whatever. And I'm kind of rallying against that. I think it's been a thread and a theme through my work all my life. This kind of idea of, yeah, of just sort of giving up before you've even tried, and of pooing on things and pushing things down when, and poo-pooing things. I don't mean actually pooing on things. I mean like poo-pooing things and pushing them aside when you're, just because it's easier, like giving up is easy, or telling people to give up. People who are telling other people to give up should get out of the way of people that are trying to do some good and trying to keep that hope going. Um, it's really, if you sort of look at literature, and you kind of look at things like Handmaid's Tale
Mm,
or Margaret Atwood, or if you look at 1984, George
yeah.
Orwell, and these books which I adore and love. But in these books, they're imagining a world where the bad people have won. They're imagining a world where we've completely lost it. We've lost any kind of hope. We've lost any kind of light or color or passion or freedom. And if writers and poets are investing in imagining a world where we haven't even won, I think that
Mm,
that's really telling as well. I want writers to write books where things work out, where
mm,
we find a way. If we're not imagining it, even in our fiction, even in our poetry, even in our songs, if we aren't imagining that
mm,
things can be better, then where are we? If you've got to start somewhere. I believe everything starts with a sketch. Everything starts with a joke or an idea or something said in a pub over a pint or a dream. Everything starts with a dream or a hope or a little scribbled something, and then from there it grows and grows. Like when you imagine early man imagining wanting to fly. It all started with some people jumping off buildings with like feathers tied to their arms, but they just kept trying and trying, and imagining flying. And it all starts with someone scribbling and dreaming and wishing and hoping, and we've got to just remember that things don't start with some big here is the solution 100% this is flying. You've got to have a bunch of people that are prepared to jump out of a tree first.
Yeah, no, you're right, actually. So, does that mean social movements in general are like really important to your writing, do you feel?
I think so. I think all of this is important. I think
Mm.
protest is really important. I don't think anything got changed without some sort of protest or some sort of march or some sort of standing together and standing up and speaking up for things to be fair or more fair. Or I think all of those things not just inform my work, but many people's work and many of the ways that we're thinking and the way that we're accepting or not accepting what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, as you know, so much is happening where we live in the UK, and so I loved Courage is a Muscle. I thought it was absolutely stunning. So, how relevant do you think it is to the current strikes, for example, that's happening in the country?
How relevant is Courage is a Muscle? How
Yeah.
relevant is it that if we, I don't know, it's a visualization. If we can visualize, like I was saying earlier, hope as an energy or hope as a group project, and then visualize courage as a muscle. And what do you do to build that muscle? You keep building it and working it. Again, we can't, we live in this, society where we expect instant results, don't we? But
Mm.
everything takes work and like working together and hearing each other. I think it's so important. That idea that you're not just going to wake up with this fantastic, courageous muscle. You've got to build it and confirm it and work on it, and just as you would down the gym, yeah, to get a six pack.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah.
I, but
Some
it's
kind of I'm like, when I said that, sorry, when I said that, I
so.
was picturing some kind of hope gym, like kind of like like positivity gymnasium. Yeah.
Well, if writing doesn't work out, Selena, there's always a business right there, a hope gym. I think that'd be
Think
lovely, actually.
positively. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I bet you, in the current climate, I bet you so many people would be up for that. But actually, one thing I noticed about your poems is that it talks about lots of different big themes. And for example, soup, which I thought was just so poignant, and it reminded me of course, of what's happening with the migrant crisis at the moment. And and there's a line in it that, in particular, which is the hungriest person at the table might just write thank you.
Yeah.
So, what is your response to what is currently happening? Do you think there is that person just saying, "Can I please have a seat at the table?"
Yeah, I mean, there's people they're not even asking for a seat at the table. They're asking literally for a bowl of soup.
Mm.
They're asking. I mean, yeah, it's incredibly heartbreaking what's going on. I don't really have a big answer to that, except that we have to try and help the people that are helping people. Help the people that are helping the people. So help
Mm.
the charities like Refugee Community Kitchen and the
Yeah.
charities like Choose Love. And I try and put as much energy as I can into the charities that are trying to help the people that are trying to help the people, and that I think that's really important. Yeah,
Well, your writing is doing that as well by just opening up, I guess, empathy. This is what it's like, and that's what I definitely read, even just by reading that one line, and I was like, that's so sad. Everyone is fighting, and then there's just one person who's just asking for something so small. But and
yeah,
then also you also talked about, I think. The neural pathway, which I thought was really interesting. I love what you said about the racists has made a neural pathway of hate. So,
yes.
how much do you think we are influenced by these kind of patterns of behavior? Like, do you feel like that's happening quite a lot now?
I'm not sure. I think we are being constantly informed. I think we're constantly taking in data and constantly being informed. I mean, we stare at our phones way too much, don't we? Whether we're staring at social media, Twitter, TikTok, whatever, and these things must be going in somewhere, you know.
Mm.
So yeah, I think we're heavily influenced by what we're watching, what we're eating, what we're watching, television, films, movies, what we're reading, which brings me back to the idea of wishing there were more books where there's a positive outcome. I mean, actually, if we look on sort of Netflix and stuff, we're watching a lot. A lot of people are watching, quite depressing stories
Yeah.
where the zombies have won, or the world has blown up and people are surviving. Or we're watching reality shows where people are literally surviving and trying
Mm.
to argue over, eating, like those sort of survival programs. I actually love those, but yeah, like there's those. Or we're watching loads of murder shows. We're watching a
Mm.
lot more murder shows. But so many. I mean, I love murder shows. But yeah, we are. It's almost like yeah, yeah. So it's really important. I've got this thing where I like to say to myself, "Is this edifying?" I love the word edifying. Is this edifying though? And I'll be there on Twitter, and then suddenly I'll go, "But is this edifying though?" And then I'll go, "No," and I suddenly
It's
catch myself like I'm just like I've just zoned out and accidentally been staring at some absolute rubbish that I just don't need to know about, or yeah, life's too short.
No,
Yeah,
no, you're right. It's scary, isn't it? How easily
yeah,
we could just kind of fall down that rabbit hole.
yeah,
And I think that's what it's aiming for, and it's working very well. Because people are just addicted to all this now. But you talk about these zombie shows and things, and you're right. It's so many people are addicted to true crime and things like that. But where in your poem, "In the Day We Stopped,"
yeah,
was this something you experienced yourself? Do you think there'll ever be a day we just stop?
yeah. I mean, that's a very strange piece of writing that it's many layered to me. It's a mixture of a dream and a vision and almost feels like a memory of somewhere I've already been. It's a very complicated feeling, that piece for me. Um, but this idea of the day we stop singing and the day we stop dancing and the day we stop laughing and the day we stop, this idea of the day we forget and the day that we lose all our, yeah, it's a many layered piece. That piece to me. What's weird about it is it feels more like a memory than a like
Mm.
something that happened as opposed to a future vision. But yeah, it's more a warning than a
Mm.
yeah. I'm not sure. That one's got a lot
Yeah.
of layers in it for me. I'll just leave it there. Yeah,
Yeah, I love it because even the fact that it has no punctuation, it does makes you just go, like, hold
yeah.
your breath almost when you're
Yeah, it's got
saying
you
it.
run out of breath doing it, and that's the kind of how it was coming through the poetry airwaves into my brain. Yeah,
I love that you have that direct connection to the airwaves, unlike the rest of us peasants. Um, but
yeah.
definitely. Oh well, Selena, I feel like you're a kindred spirit of mine. Honestly, it was so wonderful to hear from you. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us on your amazing,
Oh,
amazing poetry collection.
thank
And
you.
I'm so excited to hear about all your other ventures coming up as well. So yeah,
Oh, well,
amazing.
maybe
Please
we
keep in touch.
yeah, I was gonna say, maybe we can talk again when the next book comes out.
Absolutely. I'd be
I'd love
so
that.
honored.
It's been such a joy to meet you. Thank you.
You too.